So the car that flew over her car, crashed into the building, was that red car that I just told you that Robinson L was shooting at. So car comes flying over, crashed into the building, and now this young cop gives the story from her perspective. So on direct examination, the state is like, what happened? She's trying to tell it, but she pretty much is like, I can't really remember what was going on. So they say, can we show you your report that you gave that day, your statement that you gave that day to refresh your memory? She's like, yeah, okay, cool. Also, sorry, another big thing that kept on coming up was there a woman at the scene of the crime? Pretty much, was one of the people in this vehicle a woman? Right? That keeps coming up. Okay, so let's go forward a little bit. So, of course, they keep on asking this young police officer, like, did you see a woman? Like, she's like, no, I saw 4 males crash into the building, get out of the car, and try to run, right? So she's telling it like, yeah, I ran to try to chase the people that ran behind the building, but Officer Black, who was my trainer at the time, told me to get on the one that was on the ground. So instead of running after the people, I jumped on the one that was on the ground, and there was blood everywhere. There was a lot of blood. And Officer Black that was training her, he was there with her. So she was, she was all brand new to it. So I think now when I said earlier that this was traumatic for everybody involved, I think it was especially traumatic to this lady because she didn't want to be a police officer no more. Now she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's talking about the fact that there was just so much blood, that she was seeing so much blood on the scene because the person that Officer Black told her to get was laying on the ground bleeding out crazy. He was just bleeding a lot. So she's like, they kept on showing pictures too of all this blood on the ground. And she's just like, whatever. So she just kind of explained it through, and she didn't really have a whole lot of information because she was being trained at the time. Like all of it was new to her, and it was a crazy scenario. So then when cross-examination comes up, Keith Adams is on her, and Keith Adams is like, he asked her, I swear he had to ask her about 30 questions. She was like, I don't remember. She didn't remember nothing, which is why I say traumatic, because if trauma can evaporate your memory. Like you can be in a situation, different people respond to trauma different. Some people, they are so shell shocked by what happens, it erases their memory. They don't remember nothing. They don't remember anything that happened. The only reason that this lady remembered is because the state showed her statement to refresh her memory. But even then, she still does not recall pretty much anything that happened. Everything that Keith Adams was asking her, did you see this? What side of the car did they get out? Who was wearing what? She didn't remember nothing. Right? And so pretty much Adams made it so like, okay, well, the only reason you up here talking is because the state literally gave you this information from that statement. Like you don't know anything. You don't remember anything. And you didn't even see what happened before the car flew over the thing. So all you knew was that you were chasing somebody that tried to run. So really your testimony here, like, is fine because you did see the car crash and you saw people try to run, but you really don't know anything that happened with the crime that was being investigated, right? All you know is you've seen people fleeing, right? So that testimony meant nothing really. And and I'm saying it meant nothing, but it didn't add much value to what was going on. Okay. So then after that, then we move on to the next day, and they have a more seasoned officer come testify. And this young lady who's a seasoned vet now, she said she was like 34 years in. I guess she's an investigator now. She didn't want her face to be shown. She's pretty much she was one of the police officers that was in the car that Officer L jumped out of and started shooting at. And she was emotional. She was nervous and anxious, but she was emotional the entire testimony. Again, why I keep on saying that day was traumatic for all of these people involved. She was so emotional about that day. Soon as she got on the stand and she's introducing herself and all that, saying who she is and what kind of work she does, her voice is shaking. Like she's holding back tears pretty much the entire time. Even when she talked about that day, she remembers that day so vivid because she's like, I actually put on heels that day to go to work. And they like, why? Because she started like almost kind of crying when she talked about putting on heels. And the prosecutor's like, what made you get choked up like that? And she was like, pretty much because so many people think that if you're a woman cop, you pretty much need to be like a dude. So I just wanted to like make myself feel good that day. And I put heels on. I actually wore heels to work. And Like, and I understand what she's trying to say, because, you know, that might sound like silly or whatever, but, you know, the women that work in these fields with dudes, with like a lot of male presence, if they don't look absolutely, you know, drop dead gorgeous, men will kind of treat them like men. Like, they'll treat them like another dude. And that kind of messes with women's mental sometimes, their emotions sometimes. So I understand why she was feeling like that. So she's like got emotional about talking about wearing heels that day. You know, she got all cute or whatever for the job. She probably didn't think she would deal with anything remotely close to this. So she's talking about it, and she's like, yeah, so when we were out there in the parking lot, because Officer L said that he saw the guy that we were looking for. So we went back to where he was at to find the guy that Robeson told us he saw. And now this is where I say Keith Adams must know something about this scenario that other people don't know. The way Keith Adams questioned her on cross-examination was like he was making her say things that opposed what Officer L was saying. Such as, and the key one is that they, first of all, argued about whether they heard gunshots or not. So that was first. So, and Officer L did say that they kind of debated that. And Officer L said there was for sure gunshots, and our partners didn't think it was gunshots. They thought it was fireworks. So she corroborated that part. And so then now this is where it gets foolish, right? She said that her driver, I forget who they said the driver's name was, pulled their car in front of the red car before it pulled off. Right? And she said when the car hit them, L was still in the car. That's what she said. She said he was still in the whip. But L said he was standing outside in front of the car when all of that happened. So he said, she said they hit the car, then he hopped out and started shooting, pretty much. So that right there kind of already made L look like he was lying. So then from that point forward, like it was, then now all the rest of the story is the same. She like, we followed them out. We left L back there, you know, whatever happened, hopped out. We seen what we seen, but they really, because they weren't the ones that stopped whatever happened. Then more the whole homicide investigation, separating everybody, talking to them about what shooting just happened and all that. So again, this was a seasoned vet though, so she didn't have her memory erased like the young lady did. Let me see if I missed. Excuse me, y'all. Give me a second. Okay. So yeah, she gave that testimony. Then we move forward again, right, to the next, and this is what I mean they've been jumping around. So then the next person they interview is Eduardo Nava. Now, Eduardo, actually I missed one person. I think they started out the week, sorry. They interviewed the girl whose car it was, that red car who those guys crashed. That was somebody else's vehicle. They interviewed her, and she's pretty much like, I let my boyfriend use my car when I was at school or whatever, or school or work, I forget. And then he took it, and then it was gone from me forever. So anyway, so they interviewed her. That was all she was there for. Now they bring Eduardo Nava in. Eduardo is the boyfriend that took the car. So he tells a story about how he got the car. He said him and his friend was like bad on drugs back then. So they were like riding around looking for drugs. And then his friend said, hey, I know somewhere we can get drugs from. And then he's like, okay, cool, let's go get them. And then he drives, makes it all the way around. So he finally ends up at a gas station there waiting, trying to figure out where the next fix is going to come from. And then he said, yo, we could go over here and get them from these people. So then they pull up to this apartment. He said the apartment was full of people in there, mostly black people. And he's like, they just get high up in there, right? So then Eduardo says next thing he knows, he realizes that his car is gone, right? And he said he realized it because he looked around because he heard them having a conversation earlier about needing to borrow a car. But in his words, he said, I didn't think they would need my car, though. So pretty much the friend that he was with, Brian, gave these guys his car keys and they went and did whatever. And Eduardo was just sitting there just zoned out because he was like blasted out of his mind. According to him, he used to be addicted to heroin, and he said he pretty much would do any drugs that he can get his hands on back then. But he definitely said he was addicted to heroin, right? So he's like, they took the car. Then eventually I was like, yo, where did they go with my car? I need the car because I got to go pick my girlfriend up, right? So then he said they leave out the apartment and start walking, trying to figure out where to go. So he said they just went to like the nearest gas station they could get to. And he said when they got to like the gas station or whatever, what he thought was a gas station, that's when they seen like the entire wreckage and all of the foolishness going on with the car crashed into the building and police everywhere and stuff like that. And he's like, I was on the news. The news asked me questions. The police asked me questions, and it just got crazy. And I was just trying to get up out of there. So he's like, yo, I started lying to the police. I started telling the police all different types of stuff. So as Eduardo is in there telling his story now he's a state's witness, right? Eduardo's in here telling his story. Mid-testimony, the prosecutor, the young black man is like, he asked him a question. There's an objection. They're like, yo, objection, foundation. He's like, no, I'm not laying a foundation. I'm trying to impeach. In the middle of this man, he wasn't even cross-examined yet. The state is already trying to impeach their own witness immediately during direct examination. So that thing went left. This has been a habit for the state this entire trial. They've been bringing witnesses up there, and these witnesses have been completely flipping on them. And first of all, the man said, look, I was there, but I was high. Like, I don't know what was really going on. Even to this day, I don't know what was going on because I'm shocked that y'all even made me come here. He even broke it down and said, y'all, they have been harassing me for a while, and I've been trying to ignore them because I didn't understand why my input on this case would be so big. Like, why are they bothering me? I was trying to move on with my life. I'm not addicted to drugs no more. I have a job. Like, I have a family. Why they bother me about this? I put this behind me. This was over 10 years ago. Like, I was trying to get away from this, and like they harassed me. They started calling my parents. They started calling my brother. And he told him, they threatened and told me they was going to call my job next and tell him about this. So he's like, pretty much, he's not a hostile witness, but he's letting it be known. Like, I don't think I have any information that can help this case at all. I was there. I gave a statement, but I was lying to everybody. He's like, I told so many lies that day. I don't know what I said. They keep asking him over and over again. Do you remember telling Detective Quinn this? Do you remember telling Detective Quinn this? And the man said so many times, I don't know what I told him. He had to say that about 20 to 30 times in that testimony. He's saying, I don't remember telling him. They keep on asking him, did you tell Detective Quinn XYZ? He's like, I don't know who Detective Quinn is. I couldn't tell you who that is. I don't know who that is. Like, I don't know if I told him anything. I don't even remember if that's the person's name or not. I don't know. I don't think I told Detective Quinn anything. I don't even know who that. So he's like, but one thing he did say was that I gave them a statement, and the detective told me to stop BSing, and he deleted my statement and told me to record another one. Just think about, like, there you have a witness in here making your side of the argument look terrible. You see what I'm saying? Most of this incident seems like it's about the car crash. You see what I'm saying? It's like, we don't know what crime they're saying happened. They're saying a shooting happened, but they're not saying like who was the victim of the shooting. They're not saying who they were shooting at. They're not saying anything about that. They pretty much saying they were shooting, and then everything else going forward has been about the people driving off and crashing. Eduardo was no help. He let it be known, listen, this is messing my life up right now. He said, my family is treating me like I'm the one with the RICO case. The reason I put all this behind me is because I never thought it would ever come up again. I didn't think that my testimony would be helpful at all. I didn't want to come here. And I said it, I had put it on Twitter. I said, imagine you take your girlfriend's car 10 and a half years ago. And then 10 and a half years later, people hit you up and tell you, yo, the people that took your car, that's Young Thug and them. Can you imagine just waking up like they said, like, yo, that was Young Thug and them that took your car? So, okay, again, I think I said this last week when I talked about the guy on the jail phone call. Remember I said he was on the phone call talking about Young Thug getting away and all that? I'm assuming that jail phone call was about this incident. right? He's saying, I should have ran where Thug went. He got away. You know what I'm saying? So and that's the reason why that 911 call is so important to the district attorney or to the prosecutor, right? Because that phone call from jail and that phone call from that 911 call are the only two pieces of evidence putting Young Thug at that scene. And really, that's not evidence. That's just people just running their mouth and saying stuff. Well, the one guy who was in jail, that's because he was actually there. He claims to be one of the people that was there when they say DK shooting at the police or he was shooting at whatever happened. He was actually there. But they would need him to come testify to what he said in that jail call, right? That's first. Secondly, the other person didn't even see it at all, so they can't really testify that Young Thug did anything. But again, the state has been having such weak arguments and weak evidence this whole time. The fact that they have a shooting incident this major with all this traumatic stuff happening, and the only evidence that they have a Young Thug being there is a jail phone call and a 911 phone call with an anonymous caller. And they didn't even say Young Thug was there. They just said Young Thug was in my neighbor's house. That's the closest evidence that they have to putting Young Thug there. So once again, this is one of these things where they're painting this grand picture, but when you really step back and look at it, the evidence against YSL and not YSL because the other guys did get caught, but the evidence against Young Thug in this situation is very minimal. It's actually, we wouldn't even call this evidence. What they're showing, we wouldn't even call evidence. It's them fishing for something. And instead of handling this before they did an indictment and saying, is this worth charging him with this? Instead of handling it then, they're trying to handle it in the middle of the trial. They're trying to find somebody who can at least give them something in the middle of a trial instead of doing this investigation prior to this whole thing. And I talked about that before. We know what that's about, right? So, it's really just disgusting. So Eduardo was no help. I mean, he was help. He was help to the defense because he said, yo, I was lying about everything. Like all that stuff I said, like, I don't know. Like, don't hold me to it because I don't know what I was just trying to get up out of there. He said, I didn't even know what happened. I thought I was in trouble for buying weed. I didn't know about all this other stuff going on.